There's four or five cameras that are in service. So there's only four in the world, but they do exist, and people do work with it. They just don't use it the way that we used it. It's frequently used for visual effect shots because it's still the best technology we have for high definition, high resolution shots. So even I know on all of the Star Wars television shows that they still use VistaVision. Even though those shows are digital, they still use VistaVision cameras for their VFX shots. For example, so they are in service, but they're quite cumbersome, and for several technical reasons, they sort of fell out of fashion to shoot, the actual movie with. But because the camera was designed in the 1950s, it felt like the best tool to transport viewers to the 1950s.
First, I'd like to say you have an amazing voice. I love your voice. I would like to conjure up your voice in another character one day. It's fantastic. If you ever see me sounding similar, it's going to be because of this interview, because it is noticeable. And I was going to say it to you before you asked me a question about dialect or voice or construction of that. So that's really interesting. But I had the privilege of growing up hearing a very pronounced, distinct Hungarian accent with a formality of the 50s, because my grandfather was a man of that era, and I really try to emulate the way he sounded. We have a wonderful dialect coach to help us, Felicity and I, but I had that as like a divining rod of where the truth was, and I also was fortunate to find wonderfully informative lectures by a former Holocaust survivor who had a very distinct voice and tonality and inflection that was quite similar, and I would listen countlessly to his stories of that time in Hungary, and and try and absorb those details.
Okay, Aronofsky. That's surprising. No.
Where?
No, definitely not Aronofsky. I mean, it just wasn't on my mind. The Fountainhead, of course, is on my mind because you cannot make a film about 20th century architecture and not have it be somewhat in dialogue with Ayn Rand's book. This, of course, has a very different thesis than Ayn Rand's thesis. But King Vidor was a very, very significant filmmaker for me. Less The Fountainhead than many others, actually. His version of War and Peace, because it was a film that was shot on VistaVision, was something that I was looking at a lot when we were preparing the film. And then The Crowd is maybe one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So it's a movie I'm always thinking about, especially because the way in which King Vidor and The Crowd, he was able to do so much for very, very, very little. And there's a few films from that period of 1925 to, let's say, 1933, in the sort of pre-code era, that I find so incredibly inventive. And they are the movies that I'm usually watching if I'm preparing for a movie. But I was also watching films from Oshima, In the Realm of the Senses, which was shot on VistaVision, as well as Vengeance is Mine, which was the last feature film in 1979 to be shot fully in VistaVision. Yeah, I mean, I'm a cinephile, so I'm influenced by everything, as well as my life experiences, what I read, what I listen to,
Definitely not that. No. I think what Brady has done so well with this film is shown the complexity of relationships, of these deeply personal, intimate moments that we have the privilege of voyeuristically experiencing in this darkened room, and things that may connect to us or may not, but that we can clearly relate to that yearning of connection. And the precariousness of it all, the complexity of Laszlo's pain and what he's striving to do to quell that suffering, and witnessing the pain in his partner, and his secrets of hiding the substances that he requires to quell some of that sadness and physical hurt, and trying to share that with her, to solve that, and also confess in a way, thematically in that moment. And I think it's beautiful and poetic and heartbreaking, and the beauty lies in all the flaws, and we're all flawed, and I just I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to represent that in the work, because sometimes those are honed down and filed away, and we want our protagonists in particular to be palatable, easy to accept, and I don't think they should be, because people are heroic in spite of their failures. That's what makes them heroes.